What's up guys? Welcome to Anime Kahide. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
The poor fools were all crying for what was likely the last time, in a state of complete panic. It was a natural reaction to have. The living personification of death was standing before them.
Okay. Now, back to question time.
Ultima's voice, you could almost describe it as cheery, was the last thing all those souls ever heard. A few minutes later, a beaming Ultima chuckled to herself. She had acquired everything she wanted to know, and she was delighted with it all. She couldn't quite glean every single piece of knowledge from them, but to Ultima, reading people's brainwaves for information was a snap. She was an intelligence officer, and bringing back information was part of her mission. If she did a good job at it, she knew her master Rimuru would be pleased. I sure hope he gives me some praise, she thought. Then he turned toward the last survivor in the room. This was Faraga. He was the only one Ultima had missed amid all this despair, and she sure didn't skip him out of any kind of mercy.
And since you called me a fool, I'm going to give you the biggest scare of all. And I bet you'll survive it if you try hard enough, so let's see what you can do, okay?
Upon whispering that, Ultima activated a spell. Jet black flames the size of a fist rose above her left hand. Faraga recognized it. An abyss core, a kind of uncontrollable hellfire that was the byproduct of activating a certain other magic. Or maybe it was controllable all along, and Faraga just didn't know how. He knew that 3 members of the 7 Days clergy, the champions of humankind, could manage it. But the abyss core Ultima just conjured up was more than a level larger than the one the 7 Days could create. He might not have known how it worked, but one look, and even he could understand how much of a tactical level threat this was. Ultima casually tossed it in the air.
Okay, have fun. Bye now.
And without another word, she walked away from the bridge. Faraga, left to himself, was stunned. The question of what Ultima really was no longer mattered to him. As soon as he caught that abyss core, he realized he was at the end of his life. Instinctively, he understood that he'd never be able to control it, and that understanding was correct. Even his full power was meaningless against it. The fire that had left Ultima's control expanded, multiplied, and spread forward, as if mocking his worthless efforts. Just as Ultima took off, the dark ball of fire engulfed the flagship. Then it grew even bigger, swelling to a gigantic size and triggering an explosion. It was now a nuclear flame, the ultimate in destructive magic, and Faraga was in the middle of it.
Beautiful. This is it. The magnum opus of all magic.
With a look of ecstasy on his face, he let the dark flames scorch his body. Soon, it had evaporated, letting his very soul taste the pain of being burned alive. Master Gadra, have you ever gotten to experience this miracle? No, he decided. He couldn't have. Faraga understood that magic canceller-driven interference wouldn't matter if it could be dominated by someone with strong enough thought waves. This beautiful destruction, the one giving Faraga such a sublime sense of despair, was all the proof he needed. And so, biting back the despair and enormous gratefulness of being surrounded by the ultimate in magic, Faraga's life came to a close. Thanks to the destructive nuclear flame, the flying combat corps led by Faraga had been thoroughly crushed. Not a trace of it was left. The superheated flames caused most of the initial damage, followed by the secondary shockwave from the explosion. The flagship itself was vaporized by a core of unimaginable heat, while the surrounding ships exploded and scattered to the 4 winds, their hulls turning into lethal shrapnel. The larger fragments, hurtling downward beyond the speed of sound, caused incredible damage all by themselves. With that explosion, the outcome was set in stone. Only the very first ship to fall from the sky remained in any recognizable form. All the others were ripped apart by the chain of explosions that were the day's climax. Thus, the Flying Combat Corps, the golden child of the Imperial military, suffered the disgrace of being completely wiped away from existence well before it even caught a whiff of Veldora. Ultima was now flying away from the flagship, her interest in Faraga now gone from her mind. She turned to look at the swelling fireball, giving it a satisfied nod. Recalling Rimuru's order to go at full power, she wondered if she should have turned it up a notch after all but thought better of it. That would have killed off Team Harayu on the ground, so this much was just fine. Despite the catastrophe occurring in the air, the damage to Team Harayu was 0, as if it was calculated to end that way all along. Then again, if some of its members failed to meet their quota, they might have suffered some indirect casualties later, but that was none of Ultima's business. What she was more concerned about was Gabble.
What's Gabble been doing over there?
Gabble had been exposed to prolonged magic canceller fire. It sounded like the bridge had mistaken him for Veldora because of who knows why, but Ultima didn't let it bother her much. As things stood, however, he was going to get caught in the nuclear flame, so she really wanted him to retreat already. She flew over to his side, as much of a hassle as she knew this would be.
Hey, Gabble? What are you doing?
Ah, Lady Ultima, I've actually gained a new sense, you see.
He sounded oddly boastful about it. It piqued Ultima's interest, but evacuation took priority right now. She wouldn't be killed by her own magic, but Gabble probably wouldn't survive. Okay, maybe he would, but she didn't want to take that bet, let alone be stigmatized as someone who killed her allies, and so Ultima forcibly removed Gabble from the scene. Back on the ground, the two of them regrouped with Team Hirayu. It was finally time for Ultima's interrogation to begin.
So what's this all about?
She asked, her tone firm with Gabble. Apart from her information officer duties, Ultima was also an observer watching over him, providing both support and advice so he didn't pull anything foolish. If Gabble failed, that meant Ultima failed, too, so it was only natural that she was harsh with him. But Gabble was totally oblivious to this.
You see, when I was exposed to that special light beam the enemy shot at me, I had a brief stroke of genius. I immediately saw that this light affected magicules, and so I wanted to experiment to see how long I could withstand it.
I should just turn this lizard over to Sir Rimuru and have him scream at him, Ultima thought, but she held her ground and soldiered on.
And so what's this new sense of yours?
Yes, that's the thing. All of you, come up and listen close. Sir Midray told us that our intrinsic skill dragon body would become available to us for longer periods of time as we trained with it. I, too, kept myself transformed that entire time, didn't I?
He looked around his squadmates, sneering at them. Upon hearing this, Team Hirayu exchanged glances with each other, surprised. They were all able to transform for an average of about 10 minutes, and they had long since returned to their original forms by now.
I thought that'd be a given for you, Sir Gabble, but no.
If you teach us the secret, can we do it too?
His troops began growing more and more excited. It made Ultima glance at them with cold, dead eyes. If only these lizards could experience a little pain for a change, she thought. She showed no mercy to her foes and little care for those below her in rank, but technically speaking, Gabble's force wasn't in her hierarchy. If he disposed of them without permission, Rimuru would fume at her. And a bit of a lecture was one thing, but when she recalled how Rimuru reacted whenever one of his people got hurt, she'd likely receive a much harsher punishment, maybe even banishment. Ultima was determined not to let that happen, so after weighing that punishment against the chance to release some stress on these lizards, she reluctantly decided to remain patient.
It is thanks to you,
Gabble told her,
that I've discovered the secret of this power. You believed me when I said I had an idea, and you bought me enough time to think it through.
What?
No need to play dumb, for I, Gabble, can see right through you. We all thank you for giving us the opportunity to grow from our inexperience.
Ultima never turned down a compliment. Regaining her composure, she decided to revise her assessment of Gabble a bit.
Okay, that's enough. So what did you discover, Gabble? Because everyone else seems to want to know about it.
She decided not to bother correcting Gabble's misunderstanding. Right now, it was more important to get this situation under control. By this point, fighting was taking place only in localized pockets. There was the rear, commanded by Hakuro, the center, where Gobta, Ranga were still rampaging away, and the three main enemy positions Testarossa was headed for. Now that Gabble's crew had finished destroying their air force, it was time to head off and provide support for other parts of the battle. There was no time for idle chit-chat.
I'll report this to Sir Rimuru as well, but before that, I will be as brief as I can, and all of you listen up, too, because it'll help everyone be stronger.
Gabble sternly began his explanation. It was, in essence, a way to fully control the Dragon Body skill. As an intrinsic Dragonute skill, Dragon Body strengthened the user's body via a surge of magicules. This surge took in matter around it for its strengthening effect. More mass meant enhanced defense, along with near immediate recovery if the user was injured. Having magicules running out of control like this meant casting magic was off the table, but they'd have no problem using breath and other ability-based skills. As long as they could keep a hold of their consciousness, it provided enhanced strength with almost no downside.
Now, it seems that this enemy attack has a tendency to disrupt the movement of magicules around us, and I could feel it further enhancing my powers.
What? You mean, even beyond your current form?
Ultima was surprised. This was an unexpected side effect of the magic canceller. Right now, Gabble had magicule energy in him equivalent to back when Clayman awoke for the last time. If it could be further strengthened from here, he was definitely worth listening to. The idea of magicule disruption boosting one's power to the point that they'd statistically outdo an awakened true demon lord was enough to shock even Ultima. But there was always a catch.
No, Not like that. There's more power, yes, but I couldn't handle it very well, so I consciously focused myself, so I could feel the magicules running rampant in my body,
But the result was that pinned down performance he showed off a bit ago. He wasn't taking damage, but he couldn't move at all. However, Gabble had a knack for turning anything to his advantage, and so through that experience, he learned how to more fully sense his magicules.
That's what Sir Midray was referring to when he talked about a state of selflessness, I think. Looking into your inner space, turning an ear to it, and then…
You're taking too long. Keep it short and simple.
Gabble's force nodded their agreement at Ultima's sharp feedback.
Oh.
Gabble said, overpowered.
Well, essentially, by sensing the magicules running around wild inside me, I could send my thoughts to it, and then, wonder of wonders, I gained control over their power.
The first impression of his men upon hearing this was that he was nuts. On the other hand, it gave Ultima food for thought. Seeing them made her realize that while it was easier than breathing for her, it must have been really tough for Team Hirayu. This gave her a real shot of motivation. Wait, if I train Gabble's force, maybe they can become even stronger? Doing that would definitely make her useful to Rimuru. The potential for receiving praise from it was enormous.
I know exactly what you mean, Gabble. But we can take the time to discuss this later, alright? Because right now, I really think we need to support the goblins.
It was her way of saying this break was over. Typically, she'd report to Rimuru about how lazy they were, but after receiving such useful information from Gabble, Ultima raised her opinion of him slightly. That was why she was being so gracious here, overlooking Gabble's erratic behavior this time.
Oh yes, you're right. Well, time for us to step in and provide aid, then.
Gabble nodded happily. He still had the completely wrong idea, but Ultima didn't see that as a problem. It was better that way for her, even, so she let them be without further comment.
Anyone who didn't meet their quota is going to face some thorough re-education later, so be prepared.
You said it. I'll pitch in on that, too.
Ultima gave him an adorable smile. It seemed like a very good idea to her. And so, blissfully unaware of her intentions, Team Hirayu went back out on the field.
Nonsense! This is ridiculous!
At the main camp, far from the battlefield, Lieutenant General Gaster ranted, his face pale. Before him was a scene of unbelievable devastation.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the new members of Anime Kohai supporters: Vongola Tsunasa, Sayonari, Blaine Trevino, Mikia Celesgi, Luis Hernandez, Jay Wright, Alfredo Renteria, Arnav Ajay, Knife Mac, Eman G. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.